The rain tapped steadily against the windows of the London Royal Neurology Institute as I reviewed the patient file that had just been rushed in. A boy, 14 years old, involved in a severe cycling accident. Skull fracture. Brain swelling. Urgent neurosurgery required. I barely glanced at the name until the attending nurse rushed in with more details. Dr. Ray, the boy's mother is demanding to speak to the lead surgeon. She's outside. I sighed and removed my glasses. It had been a long day, and I wasn't in the mood for drama. But protocol was protocol. As I stepped into the waiting room, I felt something twist in my gut. Standing there was Miss Evelyn Moore. Her hair was streaked with gray now, and the years hadn't been kind. But I recognized her instantly. My former maths teacher. The same woman who once looked me dead in the eye and said, "You'll never amount to anything, Ray. Some people just aren't meant for success." Her face changed when she saw me. She froze. Her mouth opened as if to say something, but no words came. She looked afraid. "I need your help," she said at last. "Please. My son, Elliot, they said you're the best." She didn't say it like a compliment. She said it like a bitter truth she was forced to swallow. I didn't reply right away. My mind flicked back to that day, 16 years ago, in the cold classroom where she humiliated me in front of 30 other students. Called me slow. Unteachable. A disappointment. That day, something in me shattered. But it also sparked a fire I carried into every exam, every all-nighter, every operation since. "Follow me," I said curtly. "We don't have time." Back in the operating theater, I studied the scans. The injury was complex. One wrong move and the boy could lose speech, mobility, or worse. I knew the stakes. I'd done more complicated procedures before. But something about this one, it made my palms sweat. Just as we prepared the anesthetic, Miss Moore knocked on the glass, frantic. I stepped out briefly. "I know I've no right," she said, her voice trembling. "But please save him." I know what I said back then. I was wrong. The words didn't soothe me. They made me feel colder. This wasn't about the past anymore. It was about a life on my table. A life I had the power to change, or end. I looked through the glass at the unconscious boy. He looked fragile. Innocent. Nothing like her. And yet, he was hers. The nurse called me in. Time was running out. As I washed my hands and entered the theater, I couldn't shake the thought. What if this was fate? Some strange turn of the universe bringing us full circle? I adjusted the lights, nodded to the team, and picked up the scalpel. And then, just as we began the procedure, the heart monitor beeped erratically. The anesthesiologist frowned. "Dr. Ray, there's a complication." My heart pounded. "What now?" The monitor shrieked again, sharp and sudden. My surgical team moved like clockwork, checking vitals, oxygen levels, and the integrity of the anesthesia. But the numbers didn't lie. Elliot's blood pressure was crashing, and fast. "Possible reaction to the sedative," said the anesthesiologist, her voice tense. "Administer atropine." "Adjust the dosage," I ordered, keeping my eyes on the monitor. As the room buzzed with activity, I tried to block everything else out. Focus. Just focus. But no matter how hard I tried, the memory of Miss Moore's voice, her disdain, kept creeping in. "You're not good enough, Ray. You're wasting your time here." I gritted my teeth. "Not now." "Stabilizing," someone said, and I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. We proceeded with the operation, slow and methodical. The skull fracture was deeper than expected, dangerously close to the temporal lobe. One wrong slice could leave Elliot unable to speak or understand language. I steadied my hands and made the first incision. And in that moment I saw myself. Not as a neurosurgeon, but as that 16-year-old boy again, sitting in the back of her classroom, hands sweaty from shame, pretending not to hear the snickers around me. Back then, Miss Moore didn't just fail me academically. She broke something inside me. Made me question every step forward. It had taken years of discipline, therapy, and sheer stubbornness to reclaim my worth. Now, here I was, literally holding the life of her child in my hands. "Retractor," I said calmly, pushing the image of my younger self away. The deeper I went, the more I saw how fragile it all was. Brain matter like silk. Vessels like threads of glass. Every move a decision, Every decision a risk. As I worked, I caught the faint sound of someone crying in the hallway. Through the glass wall, I saw her. Miss Moore, curled on a bench, face in her hands. It should have satisfied me. But it didn't. It just stirred something darker. I didn't want revenge. I wanted answers. Why had she been so cruel? Why me? Doctor, we have a clot forming, said the nurse suddenly, snapping me back. Clamp it. Gently. I'll handle the dissection. It was delicate work, threading between tissue and trauma. A single slip could cost the boy his future. I held my breath, made the incision, and the clot came free. Bleeding controlled, the nurse confirmed. But just as we reached the final stage, the power flickered. A low hum buzzed through the room. Lights dimmed for a fraction of a second. The backup generator kicked in, but the tension didn't fade. Did we just lose recording? Asked the junior surgeon. I frowned. Restart the system. Save the current feed. We always recorded our surgeries. It was standard. For teaching, for insurance, for legal reasons. But something about that flicker. It felt wrong. Unnatural. Still we pushed through. The final stitch was placed. The boy's vitals had stabilized. The operation was a success. But as I left the theater and peeled off my gloves, the head nurse approached me, pale-faced. Dr. Ray, she said quietly. There's something you should see. It's about Miss Moore. I followed her down the hall, my heart pounding again, but for a different reason this time. She handed me a clipboard. It wasn't a medical file. It was a security report. A note had been found in the visitor's loo, written in smudged pencil on the back of a prescription slip. If he doesn't survive, I swear I'll expose everything you buried 16 years ago. And it was signed. The note weighed heavily in my hand. I stared at the signature, E. Moore, and my mind reeled. Elliot. He'd written that? No. It didn't make sense. The handwriting was jagged, erratic. Not the steady penmanship of an 18-year-old A-level student. And the tone. It wasn't the voice of a young man scared for his life. It was a threat. A calculated, angry threat. But from who? I turned to the head nurse. Who found this? Cleaner in the East Wing. Just after the power flickered. I scanned the corridor. Surveillance cameras dotted the ceiling. But if the power had truly gone out, even for just a second, footage from that moment would be missing. Convenient. I pressed the note flat on the nurse's desk. Don't file this yet. I want to do some digging. She nodded, unsure. I walked back toward recovery, my mind circling the same impossible thought. What was it that Miss Moore believed I'd buried? 16 years ago I was just a student. A struggling, exhausted, angry kid trying to survive school and home at the same time. I had no power. No secrets to hide. Unless she thought I did something I didn't realize had consequences. Outside Elliot's recovery room, Miss Moore stood. Her arms were crossed, her eyes bloodshot. She looked up as I approached. You saved him. Her voice cracked. Yes. He'll need close monitoring, but the worst is over. She looked away. I didn't expect that I'd help you? I finished coldly. Her shoulders sagged. I was wrong about you. I gave a bitter laugh. You called me a waste of space in front of 30 other students. That tends to stick. She closed her eyes for a moment. I was under pressure. Too much was going on. I cut her off. That's not an excuse. You don't get to break a child and blame stress. We stood there in silence for a moment, the hum of machines filling the void. Then she whispered, You think I came here just for the surgery? I narrowed my eyes. She leaned in, lowering her voice. I knew you'd be on call tonight. I requested you. Why? Because there's something I need to tell you. Something that involves both of us. My heart thudded once, hard. What are you talking about? She glanced around, as if the hospital walls had ears. Then she reached into her coat pocket and handed me a small flash drive. Watch this. And keep it quiet. For your own sake. I stared at the device in my hand. Cold. Inert. But somehow buzzing with menace. She turned to go. You're not going to explain? Not here. Not yet. And with that, she vanished down the corridor. Back in my office, I locked the door and plugged the flash drive into my encrypted laptop. A single video file. No label. No date. I clicked it open. Grainy footage appeared. A dim classroom. A teenage boy me, sitting in the back row, hunched over his desk. The camera zoomed in slowly. Then I heard her voice. Miss Moore. Raymond, if you speak of this again, you'll regret it. No one will believe you. The boy me looked up. Face pale, lips trembling. I paused the video. What had I said? What had I seen? And then I remembered. That afternoon. That empty classroom. Her locking the door. The other boy, Daniel, crying in the corner. A conversation cut short by a slammed door. A memory I had buried so deep, I convinced myself it never happened. But it had. And now someone else knew. The video left my chest tight and my skin cold. I sat in the dark, the laptop's glow flickering across my face. That grainy footage. It wasn't proof of a crime. But it was a memory. One I had spent years suppressing. Now it clawed back to the surface, raw and vivid. Daniel. That was the boy in the corner. He had disappeared shortly after that term. We were told his parents had relocated for work. But now, I wasn't so sure. I needed answers. The hospital clock struck 3 in the morning. I should have gone home. But instead, I walked back toward Elliot's room, half expecting Miss Moore to still be there. She was gone. I stood outside the glass, watching Elliot's chest rise and fall. Peaceful. Unaware. Whatever dark past Miss Moore dragged behind her, her son didn't deserve to suffer for it. And yet, he already had. I went to the nurse's desk. Has anyone come in or out of recovery 3? The nurse glanced at the log. No. Just you and the consultant earlier. I nodded. If anyone visits, page me. Immediately. Back in my office, I opened my encrypted notes and typed a name I hadn't thought of in over a decade. Daniel Whitlow. A search through the medical and public records yielded nothing useful. No adult Daniel Whitlow matched his age in the NHS. No LinkedIn, no Facebook, no alumni records. It was as if he vanished. Or was erased. I leaned back, heart pounding. Someone didn't want him remembered. Just then, a soft knock came at the office door. I tensed. Yes. The door creaked open, and a face peeked in. Young, unsure. It was Mia, one of the night interns. Sorry, Dr. Moore. There's someone downstairs. Says he's your brother. I froze. I don't have a brother. Mia looked confused. He insisted. Said his name was Daniel. I was on my feet in seconds. By the time I reached the front desk, the lobby was empty. Only the security guard remained, chewing his pen, flicking through CCTV feeds. Where is he? I asked. The guard raised an eyebrow. Who? The man. Just now. Daniel. No one's been through in the last 15 minutes, he said, clicking back through the footage. And he was right. The recordings showed no one. I returned to my office, hands shaking. Was I hallucinating? Was this some elaborate setup by Miss Moore? But why? Back at my desk, a new email sat unread. From E. Moore. Subject. Check the records. Room 12. Before they're gone. No greeting. No signature. Just that. Room 12? I bolted down the corridor to the hospital's cold archives. Room 12 was rarely used. The lock was rusted, the air musty with forgotten years. Inside, rows of medical files from the early 2000s lined the walls. I scanned the shelves, then froze. Patient file. Whitlow, Daniel. 2009. I flipped it open. Diagnosis. Anxiety, sleep disorders, recurring nightmares. Referral. School physician. Request for psychological evaluation. Final note. Guardian refused further treatment. Patient withdrawn from care. File sealed. The file had been signed by head teacher M. Moore. Miss Moore. She had personally shut it down. I staggered back, the air thick in my lungs. Miss Moore didn't just hurt me. She buried Daniel. I barely slept that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Daniel's face. Frightened, pale, pressed against a window no one else looked through. His silence wasn't just sadness. It was fear. Fear that had been ignored. Or worse, deliberately silenced. By morning, I was in the hospital library archives, digging further. I needed more. Names. Records. Connections. I cross-referenced student records from Miss Moore's years at Eddington Primary School. Most of the files had been digitized, except those from 2008 to 2010. Gone. Transferred, the system said. No destination listed. Then I found something. A scanned memo from an old staff meeting dated March 2010. It listed students referred for psychiatric evaluations. 4 names. Daniel's among them. 3 of the 4 had been removed from school within 6 months. 1 had reportedly died by suicide at 15. Why wasn't this known? Why had no one asked questions? My head spun as I connected the dots. Miss Moore had been a gatekeeper. She controlled who received care, who was silenced, and who disappeared. Was it protection? Or power? I returned to Elliot's ward. Miss Moore was back, standing over his bed, whispering something too softly to catch. When she turned, she jumped slightly to see me. "You've been busy," I said. She gave a tired smile. "So have you." We stared at each other, no pretenses left. "I know about Daniel," I said. Her smile faded. "Then you know he needed help," she replied. "And no one gave it to him. You refused it." "I did what I had to do." "Why?" I stepped closer. "You buried those records. You silenced students." "Why?" She looked down at her son. Her voice was thin. "Because if they had looked too closely at Daniel, they'd have seen what was done to him. And they would have blamed me. Not the man who hurt him. Not the school that ignored it. Me." I paused. "You were protecting yourself." She looked up, and for the first time, I saw tears in her eyes. "No. I was trying to protect him. I thought if I kept quiet, they'd leave us alone. But he never recovered. He grew up broken. He changed his name. He ran. And last year he died." My stomach dropped. "Daniel is dead?" She nodded. "You said he was your brother." "He was. Half-brother. Same father. Different stories." Everything inside me went cold. "That means Elliot." "Yes." She looked at her son. "He has the same blood. The same curse." Before I could respond, the hospital alarm sounded. Loud, shrill, urgent. Miss Moore bolted up. "That's Recovery 3. We both ran toward Elliot's room. It was empty. Only the 4 drip was still swinging. The room was cold. Empty. Only the lingering swing of the 4 stand gave proof that someone had been there just seconds ago. I rushed to the intercom. "Security. Lock down every exit. Patient missing from Recovery 3. 7-year-old boy. Brown hair, gray hospital gown." Static buzzed. Then, "Copy that. All exits secured." Miss Moore was frozen. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. Just stood there, eyes fixed on the spot where Elliot had been. I grabbed her by the shoulder. "Where would he go?" She blinked slowly. "He wouldn't run. Then someone took him." She shook her head. "No one can get in without clearance." But someone had. I tore through the corridors, checking cameras, questioning nurses, alerting every department. A nurse said she saw a man in scrubs near Recovery 3, but no one else had seen or authorized him. I made it to the security office. "Show me the footage. Every angle near Recovery 3 in the last 20 minutes. The guard complied. We fast-forwarded, eyes locked to the screen. Then we saw it. A tall man in scrubs and a surgical mask. Come. Casual. Entered Recovery 3. 4 minutes later, exited with a blanket-wrapped bundle. No one questioned him. He walked straight out through the South Service elevator. I want every feed from that lift. But the screen glitched. "Signals cut," the guard muttered. Like someone disabled it on purpose. Miss Moore stood behind me now. Pale. Rigid. "Did you recognize him?" I asked. She didn't speak. I turned. "Miss Moore." She swallowed. Then nodded. "His name is Nathaniel Black." Who is he? She closed her eyes. The man who hurt Daniel. And Elliot's father. Silence fell like a weight. I couldn't breathe. He's alive. He disappeared after Daniel's breakdown. I never told Elliot about him. I thought he was dead. Or hiding. But now. She trailed off, voice cracking. I clenched my fists. Then why take Elliot now? She looked at me with haunted eyes. Because I went to you. Because I brought the past into the light. I stared at the paused screen. Nathaniel's eyes were barely visible above the mask, but there was something in the way he moved. Precise, patient, in control. He'd done this before. And he would do it again. Unless we stopped him. The police were slower than I'd hoped. They opened a file. Took statements. Logged footage. But I saw it in their eyes. This wasn't their priority. To them, Elliot was just another custody issue gone strange. Not a ticking time bomb. So I took matters into my own hands. I returned to the archives and pulled every record tied to Nathaniel Black. What little there was painted a chilling picture. Former school governor, multiple abuse allegations, all dropped before trial. Vanished in 2011. And just like Daniel, his victims had gone silent. Or missing. Then, in a dusty folder from a discontinued mental health program, I found it, Black's referral form. He was a patient at Westmore Psychiatric Center. Westmore had closed years ago. But records showed he'd never officially been discharged. My breath caught. If he was hiding, that's where he'd go. A place forgotten by the system. Left to rot. I showed Miss Moore. She paled. That place. Daniel was taken there. Before I got custody. Just 2 weeks. He came back different. We were already in the car before she'd finished the sentence. Westmore loomed on the edge of the old town. A crumbling shell behind locked gates and broken fences. The kind of place the wind never quite left alone. We parked outside. The main doors were chained, but a side entrance gaped open like a wound. Inside the air was thick. The silence, almost sentient. Peeling paint, damp corridors, the hum of old electricity. And then we heard it. Footsteps. Soft. Deliberate. We followed, winding past abandoned therapy rooms and rusted beds. A child's drawing still clung to one wall. Faded crayons sketching a red figure standing over a smaller blue one. Then we saw the room. Door half closed. A faint glow inside. Miss Moore pushed it open slowly. Elliot sat on a mattress, unharmed but pale. Staring at the man beside him. Nathaniel Black. He turned as we entered, smile thin as paper. I wondered how long it would take. Miss Moore stepped forward. Let him go. He cocked his head. I'm not hurting him. You don't get to touch him, I said, voice hard. Nathaniel's smile didn't waver. You think you've uncovered something. But you know nothing. I was made this way. And so was Daniel. And now, so is Elliot. He stood, slow and deliberate. Pain is inherited, he said. Just like blood. Miss Moore trembled. But I stepped forward. You're wrong, I said quietly. Pain isn't inherited. But monsters are made. And it ends here. Then the lights flickered. And the room plunged into darkness. Darkness swallowed us whole. I heard Miss Moore gasp. Then, a scraping sound. A footstep. Breathing. I reached for the emergency torch in my coat. Flicked it on. A beam of light cut through the gloom, revealing Nathaniel halfway across the room. One arm stretched toward Elliot. Step away from him. I barked. He turned, eyes gleaming in the torchlight. You still don't see. This boy is like me. He belongs with me. No, Miss Moore said, voice shaking but firm. He belongs with himself. He's not yours. He never was. Nathaniel took another step. Daniel was mine. And he slipped away. But I won't lose Elliot. He has the same darkness. I see it in his eyes. I moved between them. What you see is fear. And you don't get to feed on it anymore. He lunged. I reacted faster. We collided, bodies hitting the ground. The torch skittered across the floor. Darkness again. I heard Miss Moore scream Elliot's name. Then footsteps, small and light, moving away. Nathaniel groaned beneath me, twisting. Stronger than I expected. But I held firm. Then, a click. A red glow lit the room. Elliot stood by the torch, holding it up like a weapon. His small voice rang out. "Let him go." Nathaniel froze. And in that second, the sirens began to wail. Police. The backup I'd called en route had finally caught up. Red and blue lights sliced through the shattered windows. Nathaniel looked at Elliot. Then at me. Something broke in his face. Not rage. Not fear. Emptiness. He slumped to the floor as officers stormed in. Handcuffs clicked. Commands shouted. And it was over. We sat outside Westmore as dawn broke. Elliot, wrapped in a blanket, sat quietly beside Miss Moore. His head leaned on her shoulder. She stroked his hair, whispering something only he could hear. I stood apart, watching the light creep over the building's crumbling frame. "Will he be okay?" a detective asked. I nodded slowly. Eventually. He looked at me. "And the man?" I met his gaze. "He'll never hurt anyone again." The detective left. But I lingered. Because in the end, it wasn't about monsters hiding in abandoned places or secrets buried by silence. It was about breaking the cycle. And making sure darkness stopped with us.